In Swift, functions are first-class citizens. That's if you want to Google more about it, Google closures and passing functions. So let's create a little function here. Well, let's have maybe we still want our numbers array. Okay, let's create an array numbers. There you go. That's an array numbers. Now let's create a couple of functions. Okay. A function to square whatever number you give to it, and a function to multiply by 2. So I'm going to create these two functions right here. The first function, square, you give it a number, which is of kind integer, and returns an integer. And what it does is it returns the square of that number. There's also a func double. You give it a number, which is an integer, and it returns an integer. And that returns the number times 2. Okay. Now, what you can do is you can assign these functions to a variable. So you can do var, for example, operation equals sq, for example, all right? And that assigns this whole function to the variable operation. Now you can say, for example, print operation 3, and that should give you the square of 3, okay? Then you can see there it is, 9. Okay, you can barely see that, but that's a 9. So you can use operation instead of sq. Now the good thing about this is that then you can do, for example, double, right? You can assign double, and then it's going to be the value of this print statement that we have not changed at all is now 6, okay? Because operation is the same variable. What changes the function that it's performing. And that can be very useful when we, for example, want to do something like, I don't know, for n in numbers, okay, and then perform some operation in all the numbers. So print operation n, right? So here, for example, we're going to go for each number in this array up here, and then we're going to perform whatever operation we have. That's called mapping. We're mapping an array, okay? And lastly, we can have, for example, a function that processes a list. And look at this function here, right? So we're going to have a function convert list. We're going to give it the list. The list is going to be of type array of integers. That's how you specify that. And then an external operator into operator, which is a function that goes from an integer to an integer. That's how you specify that now we're going to pass a function as a parameter. And into is just an external keyword that we're going to use, okay? So I want to convert the list. I'm going to give it L, which is going to be the list, and that is going to be an array of integers. So I'm going to give an array of integers, and I'm going to do an operation with each element of this array, and I'm going to pass it into the variable OP. What is the type of OP is of type function that goes from an integer and returns an integer. So in this function, what I'm going to do is for n in L, so for each element of this list of integers, L, I'm going to print, and I'm going to execute the operation on the number. Whatever operation I pass, I'm going to pass n as a parameter to that operation, and I'm going to print the result of that, right? So then look what I can do. What I can do then is to say convert list, and then what list? Well, numbers is a list, right? And then into, because that's the external keyword that I'm going to use, and then what function that goes from int to an int am I going to pass as OP? Well, let's say double, okay? And now this effectively generated the double of all the numbers in my list, right? If I pass another function like square, right, then I'm going to get the squares of these elements, right? Those are the squares of the elements in numbers, right? I can pass, for example, an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And do the squares of these. Here are the squares. I can do double that. So as you can see, I'm passing functions as a first-class citizen, as a variable. So here's the 1 times 2, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, functions can have many parameters. We've seen there's a video on that. But also functions can be passed into other functions as parameters, or they can become a variable.